The wind came down off the bird-toothed mountains that November evening, carrying the first real bite of winter with its sister. Agnes stood just inside the barn door, her black habit dusted with early snow, her plain face flushed from the cold and from something deeper that had been building for weeks. Thomas forked the last of the hay into the manger, his back to her at first. The way a man keeps his back turned when he is trying to pretend the world is still simple. He had known she was there. He had heard her soft boots on the frozen ground, but he had kept working, hoping the moment would pass. It did not. Sister Agnes took one step further into the lantern light, her hands clasped so tight the knuckles showed whitelet. "Me be Eve," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "Let me taste what's forbidden just once before I go back to the silence forever." Thomas set the pitchfork against the wall, slow, deliberate. The way he set down a rifle when the shot was finished. He turned then and looked at her full in the face. She was 47, the same age Martha had been when the cancer took her 3 winters ago. Her eyes were the color of winter sky just before snow, and they held no coyness, only a raw, honest pleading that made his chest hurt. In a place he thought had closed up for good. "Sister Agnes, please," he said. "Lo, you don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly what I'm asking," she answered. "I have thought of nothing else since the night you carried me across the creek when the bridge washed out, 2 arms around me, your heart beating against my shoulder. I felt it." Thomas, I felt alive for the first time since I was 16 and walked through those convent gates thinking God wanted all of Mesh. Took another small step closer. The scent of hay and horses and wood smoke thick between them. I am not asking for forever. I am asking for one night. I'll too know what it is to be wanted as a woman, not as a sister, not as a pair of hands to cook and clean and pray, but as if flesh and breath and long. And Thomas felt the years fall away for a moment, felt the old blood stir the way it had not stirred since. Martha's soft weight was warm beside him in the dark. He closed his eyes and saw Martha's face the night she asked him to let her go when the pain got too big. "Let me go home, cowboy," she had whispered on. He had held her until she did. He opened his eyes again and looked at the woman standing there, trembling in her heavy wool habit, her plain features made beautiful by the honesty written across them. "Sister," he said, "Jenna Lou are already wanted by God. Be the children you teach by. Every soul you have comforted in that little mission, you are wanted more than you." "No, but not like this," she whispered. "Not with hands that shake to touch and lips that ache to be kissed, not with a body that wakes in the night, remembering the strength in your arms and weeping because it will never belong to anyone." Thomas took one slow breath that tasted of frost and alfalfa and the faint lavender soap the sisters made every spring. He stepped forward, not to take her, but to place his rough hands very gently on her shoulders. The way he would quiet a nervous Agnes, he said, using her given name for the first time. "Look at Mesh," did tears standing bright in her eyes. "If I gave you what you think you want tonight, tomorrow you would wake carrying a weight heavier than any vow you ever took. I would wake carrying shame for breaking something sacred in you, and neither of us would be free. We would be chained together by regret instead of Gracie." Brushed a tear from her cheek with the pad of his thumb, careful as though she were made of glass. "There is no fruit in this barn forbidden enough to be worth your peace. You are already whole. You are already loved beyond measuring by a love that saw you before I ever deigned. Will hold you long after my hands are dust." Sister Agnes stood very still under his touch, her breath coming in small white clouds in the cold air. Then, slowly, wonderfully, she smiled, a small, sad, radiant smile that made her look suddenly young. "You are a good man, Thomas Brennan," she said. "Martha knew. Ita the whole valley knows it tonight. I know it deeper than I thought possible." She reached up and covered his hands with hers just for a moment, warm and trembling. "Then let them go. I will carry this night in my heart," she said, "not as shame but as mercy. You gave me back myself." "Thank you." Thomas stepped back, his throat thick. "Go on back to the mission now, sister, before the snow gets to Perry'll walk you to the gate." They walked side by side through the swirling flakes, neither speaking. The silence between them no longer heavy, but strangely light, filled with something gentler than desire and stronger than loneliness. At the gate she paused and looked up at the sky where the stars burned cold and clear. "I think Eve understood more than we give her credit for," she said softly. She wanted to know, and knowing cost her everything, and still she chose it. Maybe Grace is big enough for that too. Thomas opened the gate for her, the iron latch cold under his fingers. "Grace is always big enough, Agnes. That's the whole point." She looked at him one last time, her eyes shining with tears and starlight, then turned and walked up the road, her habit dark against the snow, her steps steady, now carrying her back to the life she had chosen and would choose again come morning. Thomas stood watching until the darkness swallowed her, then closed the gate soft and latched it firm. He walked back to the barn and picked up the pitchfork and finished feeding the horses, his movements slow and sure, the way they had been for 50 years. And somewhere in the quiet, a weight he had carried alone for 3 long winters shifted just a little, not gone but shared, carried now by mercy as well as memory. He looked up at the sky where the snow kept falling gentle and clean, and whispered the only prayer he knew when words failed: "Thank you for holding us both tonight." Then he turned down the lantern and went home to the empty house that somehow did not feel quite so empty anymore. The following Sunday, the little mission church smelled of pine boughs and candle wax. Sister Agnes stood at the back door greeting the ranch families as they came in from the cold, shaking snow off coats and boots, stamping numb feet on the mat. Thomas came late, as always, walking the 2 miles from the ranch because the pickup had a dead battery, and he had not felt like wrestling with it. He slipped in quiet, took his usual place in the back pew, hat in his hands, head bowed. When Sister Agnes saw him, her breath caught just a little, but she finished speaking to old Mrs. Callahan about the Christmas pageant and then walked down the aisle slow, her rosary beads clicking soft against her side. She stopped beside his pew and looked at him, steady, no blush now, only peace. "Good morning, Thomas," she said, clear enough for the people nearby to hear and think nothing of it. "Cold out, morning, sister," he answered, tipping his head. "Looks to stay that way." She smiled, small and real, and moved on to light the Advent candle, the first purple one for hope. Thomas watched the flame catch and steady, and felt something inside him catch and steady too. After Mass, the children ran wild in the parish hall, chasing each other around the tables while the women poured coffee and the men talked cattle prices and whose roof needed patching before the next storm. Sister Agnes found Thomas standing by the window, watching the snow pile against the glass. She came with 2 cups of coffee, strong and black, the way he had always taken it. "Peace offering," she said, offering 1 cup. He took it, their fingers brushing just enough to remember and not enough to hurt. "Thank you," he said, "for the coffee and for the other night." She looked out at the falling snow, quiet for a long moment. "I confessed it," she said, "all of it, Father. Ramirez is 82 and half deaf, but he heard enough. He gave me penance to pray for you and to bake you cinnamon rolls." Said a man who can gentle a woman's heart the way you did ought to have warm rolls at Christmas. Thomas felt his mouth tug upward, the first real smile in a long while. "I do like cinnamon rolls," he said. "Good. They'll be on your porch Christmas morning, along with a jar of Martha's raspberry jam. I found in the mission pantry. Someone brought it years ago and it never got opened. Seems only right it goes home now." Thomas looked at her, then full and long the way a man looks when he is seeing something precious he thought was lost forever. "You kept her jam." "I keep a lot of things people leave behind," she said soft. "Some of them find their way back to where they belong when the time is right." They stood quiet while the children laughed and the coffee cooled between their hands. "I been thinking," he said at last, "about that big cottonwood down by the creek, the one we buried. Jack under last year. Roots are getting into the water line. Needs to come down before spring or it'll tear the pipe clean out." Sister Agnes raised an eyebrow. And you're telling me this because asterisk, because I could use an extra pair of hands come warmer weather asterisk? Mission always needs firewood asterisk trees. Yours if you'll help cut and haul kids can have a day out roast wieners. Make a memory. She studied his face, searching for pity or charity and finding neither, only the same. Steady kindness that had turned her away from the barn door and sent her back to herself whole asterisk, I think. The children would love that, she said asterisk, and I make a fair pot of beans. And it's settled, he said. Come spring, she echoed winter, closed in after that hard and early the way. Montana winters do asterisk Thomas kept the road to the ranch broke. With the old tractor so the mission's ancient van could get through when the county plow fell behind asterisk. Sister Agnes brought soup when the flu went through the valley and sat with old Tom Halvorson when his heart stuttered and the ambulance was slow sing